I want to welcome everybody who's here and make sure that we have a great evening tonight. I expect some input. This is a topic that not everybody's very much aware of. And I know that this was a topic that when I got on the body code and I saw this, I was like, what's a miasm? I have no idea what a miasm is. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And first of all, we're going to make sure that everybody is muted. There we go. You see that? I guess since I muted you, I can't expect a response. How about a thumbs up? There we go. Okay, good. Yeah, that's kind of been my MO lately. I ask a question and nobody's even able to answer, and I'm going, oh, okay, there we go. So as I was doing this work with other people, and I discovered that miasms were a thing, it makes me dig deeper and deeper to try and figure out what the heck this really is. And it's an inherited disruptive energy. And I used to think that I was in a situation with a miasm because my dad died of heart disease. In fact, it's been 25 years now that I was literally standing next to him when he went down. We were up on a mountain and he was with us. We were going to do a birthday hike, I guess would be what you'd call it, for my brother Jim. And we decided that we were going to go up the mountain, and I got my brothers there, I got my son there, and this was back in 1994, and we were all excited about this. We got together. It was over on the Olympic Peninsula, and if you've ever been to the Olympic Peninsula, it's absolutely gorgeous with the Olympic Mountains. And we were going to go this little simple trail. My dad had had a heart attack a couple of years before, so we made sure that the only thing he had in his in his backpack was a sleeping bag. And we stopped and just had a great time Wednesday night. He had reported in. He was a bishop for our church, so he was reporting in. Everything was good. So we were just really excited to do this. Next morning, we took our time. Instead of like most guys to jump right out there, we took this picture. And I remember saying, oh, yeah, we better get a picture because you never know when we're going to be all together again. And what a fateful set of words that I said. And we stopped at the grocery store. We bought, must have been 50 pounds of meat, or $50 worth of meat. It wasn't 50 pounds. $50 worth of meat. We were going to hike up this place, 2-mile hike up a mountain though, and then stay at this campsite that was up there and then come back the next morning. That was the goal. And I remember we were all excited, and because of my dad's condition before, he's outdoor, he was a gardener, he had a greenhouse, he just was really active, but he had that issue. So we put the sleeping bag in his backpack and he was in the front. Probably my mistake was to put him in front because he was at a good pace. I was at the back trying to keep up. And I remember that as we got going about a mile up there, I said, hey, we better slow down. I was concerned about that. And so we all stopped, and he was standing there next to me 1 second, and the next second, boom, he was down. And I had been working in search and rescue quite a lot. And so I did mouth to mouth. I started immediately trying to get air into his system. And strange as it is, a father and a son were coming down the trail, and the son was a medical student. So he actually jumped right in there and did compressions. Now you gotta remember, this is 1994, and there are no cell phones really that he had at that particular time. And of course, then again, we were up on a mountain kind of. And so we sent my younger brother down the mountain a mile to get to the payphone in the parking lot. And in the meantime, we're doing all this work. And it took them, they got there as quick as they could, and they had a gurney with a wheel on it. And they came up and they said, stop, 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 we'll take it from here. And they put him on the gurney. The guy was on it. In my mind, I thought, he's coming back. He's coming back. And when we got down there, I rode with him in the ambulance. And it was just, it was a shock to me to realize that he didn't come back. And I thought, wow, 1 minute he's standing there, the next minute he's down. And then I started doing some research, and well, I knew that my grandfather had passed away, his dad, of a heart issue. It could have been a heart attack or a stroke, same thing. And I'm thinking, and I found out that my great-grandfather died of a stroke or a heart attack, all about the same age. My dad was 62. I just turned 63 just last week. And so it was hitting home pretty hard there. And I thought, that's when I learned about miasms. And I thought, okay, so what did I just pass on to my son and my grandsons? Or I wanted to get off this merry-go-round is what I wanted to do. And that's when I started working with the body code, the emotion code, and recognizing the fact that these are energies that we needed to work with. Now, I thought I had inherited the heart problem. I thought that's what it was actually happening. And in reality, what you're inheriting is disruptive energy or weakness. Let's go ahead and let's move on to the next slide here. So what is a miasm in actuality? Miasm is a word that homeopaths use and have for many years. Samuel Hahnemann, I think I said the name right, was the one who really studied these things, and he came up with three main kinds of miasms. There's the skin or the psora, the syphilitic, and the psychosis. Now, I may be butchering those names, but I think I got them right. And they were named usually after a disease that was going on when this man was alive, which I believe was about 100 years ago. The big thing is here, most people have at least one, if not several, of these common miasms. And I thought, wow, is it just three of them? So I started doing my research on Google, trying to figure out how many kinds are there. And there's a lot. And we're going to talk about some of them here. So miasm clarification, okay, what we're dealing with is an inherited predisposition towards physical and or mental illness or weaknesses. That's the key to remember, is that that's kind of in there with the a predisposition. So this energy, it's not the actual disease, but the blueprint of a vibrational problem. That's the key right there. It's the blueprint of a vibrational problem. And when you have one of these, it makes it so that you are more susceptible, I would say, to having something go on that you may run into. We're going to go through some of these here. The effects, it is on a physical, mental, and emotional level. So we got the 4 levels, and I always ask, is it mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional? But as I was testing, it's these 3 that we're mainly working on. It's not necessarily spiritual. Could it be spiritual? I keep getting a test for no. So that's something to think about when we're doing this here. So I was getting a no, but I did on the other 3. Now what that does is that means when we think about something, we usually think about it on a spiritual level. Now when I first understood about levels, it was because I was working with another practitioner, and I've used this story before, but I'll refresh it if you haven't heard. He came to me and he said, hey, I can't test anymore. I need a muscle test. He worked with multiple personality disorders, and he needed to have that capability. And I said, well, sure, come on over. Let's do it. I was young and dumb, and I thought I could fix anything. So he came over, and I worked on him, thinking that I fully got everything. And he left, and he was able to test, so I was excited. And he went back, and one of the first things he did was he found another friend who could muscle test. And what they did was they checked my work. I get this text, or not this text, but this email later on saying that, well, you got most everything except on the spiritual level. And I'm like, levels? There's levels in this thing? I had no idea. I'm a former cook, so that was out of my realm of understanding. If I was a healer, maybe I understood that, but I didn't. So the physical, mental, and emotional is what the miasms are mainly going to be affecting. So let's go through these real quickly and just kind of give you an idea. And the idea is not to scare you or figure, and you don't need to know all this information, but I think it makes a difference if you have a foundation of what's going on. Is that, everybody agree on that? Thumbs up? Yeah. The psora, I didn't even know the names of these different kinds until I started doing this work. And this has to do with skin in a lot of different cases. Also, scabies. Okay, so back in those days, I don't know, has anybody else besides me experienced scabies? Had no clue what they were. My mother, who was elderly at the time living, she had been in a home because she had, I don't know if she broke her hip, and there was some reason she needed to be there. And then when we brought her back home, she had these little critters that we didn't even know existed. And all of a sudden, we're all itching. In fact, it makes me itch. Just like when you talk about lice with your kids, all of a sudden you want to scratch your hair. When we dealt with this, it was like almost impossible to get rid of this. It was months, it seemed like. We were doing the tea tree oil and, you know, making sure everything was washed. And it was just, it's kind of like what we're doing right now, is in the fact that we had to try and make sure that we didn't spread the scabies, because apparently, I mean, shoot, you look cross-eyed at it and all of a sudden you got one and then you got this bump and you can't get rid of it. So back in those days, it was pretty common to have this. And what he found was that it was contagious by the slightest touch, which explains why this miasm is present in every human being. Think about it. We are so interconnected. Some argue, in fact, that it is present in every living thing. It arises from skin eruption that was called the itch, which is the scabies thing. It reflects the origin by counting among its symptoms a kind of rash that itches more from being scratched. So there's all kinds of things that we're dealing with. Eczema, we're dealing with all kinds of skin issues. So now when you run into somebody who has a skin problem you can't figure out, maybe it pops into your head and it says, it could be a miasm. And it could be the Psora miasm, if you really needed to know. Quite frankly, I think we're good as long as we have the idea that these different ones are out there. Now, they say that this is the source of all of allergies and intolerances. I thought, wow. So this is, remember, this is the blueprint. Let's go back up here real quick so I can give you the, let's see, the blueprint of a vibrational problem. A disposition of weakness. So interestingly enough, it also affects you as anxiety, fear of poverty, obsession of not having enough. Me, for example, and I reread this a couple times. I thought maybe I was just off my rocker already, but you know, I like to have money in my wallet. I don't care if it's $5. I hide it away. I usually try and keep a $100 or $200 or even $300 in my wallet, folded up, stuck inside somewhere, so that just in case I can go buy a hamburger. I remember being so poor at some times in my life that, you know, the AMPMs, I don't know if you all have them, but we had AMPMs, and I could, for $1, I could go buy 2 hamburgers or 2 hot dogs. They were pretty cheap, but in those days, I was working out as an insurance agent. I just starting out. It was just a struggle. We had no money. And so even the fact that I'd go somewhere and not have money just really affected me. So for me, I feel more comfortable when I have something in there. And when I can upgrade it, I do it. But I thought, oh my gosh, I must have the Psora miasm. And sure enough, I test for it. And it says, yes, I got it. And is this something that still affects me? Yes. Is it something I'll ever get completely rid of? And it says, yeah, at this point, I don't believe I can, but I think you can do things about this. So look at the other one. Fear of poverty, obsession, avoiding a sense of lack. And we can approach this from a lot of different directions. I could work with a woman today. She has been working at that place for 14 years. I think it's 13 or 14 years. And it's a large corporation. She has a great job. Everybody loves her. But 47 of them got laid off today. That the situation and the system that we're living in right now with this virus thing. And so her company had to lay her off. Now, I don't think that job's ever coming back. In that situation, so she got a hold of me. She says, I need a session. We got to clear this. I need to be able to, she kept asking me, am I going to get another job? And I'm thinking, I'm not a fortune teller, but you know, I know that this person is really honest. She works hard, a great personality. She worked with, you know, a good job of helping to procure things with this company. And I said, well, this actually is an opportunity for you right now. you can figure out what it is that you really want to do and focus on. She's in her early 40s. Her life is still way ahead. You know, there could be anything that she could do. Nobody's going to be trying to push her away if they understand what kind of a value she is. I said, you need to figure out what you want to do. This could be a wonderful thing for you. But once again, it's Zora miasm. It tested positive. Let's go to the next one. Syphilis. Aren't these great names? They're named after the diseases that everybody had to deal with back in those days. So interestingly enough, this is inherited because people don't get syphilis as much as they used to back then. It was pretty common back then. It was the guys that got the syphilis. Well, this ties into, oh, did I not change that? I think syphilis, also the tuberculosis is in this one too. So I thought I changed all of these. Let's see if the next one comes up the same. Because there is one that I did for tuberculosis miasm. But I found that almost all of these are located in these three major ones. So I think this is in here. But you've got usually inherited, and its trait is being hidden. So syphilis, somebody would have syphilis, and they would be cured of it, and then, but yet it would still be inside, as it's like herpes or something like that, where, you know, you get rid of you may not have the bumps and things, but you still have that predisposition for that. It never really goes away. Commonly affects, though, internal decay, sense of harboring that something is wrong. You know, it's just that feeling that, and I find this all the time with clients where they just feel like something's going to happen. They don't know what it is, but something's going to happen. And it's from this miasm that was inherited. So internal conflict, control, self-control, fighting for dominance over a damaged self. These are the people, and I said, these are those people, and I may be one myself, who has been fighting to try and make a difference. Now, I had a wonderful session with Carmen the other day. Carmen, their kindred, she found that I was punishing myself for something. And I thought, okay, this all makes sense, because there's been some things in my life. I lost my restaurant. I ruined the livelihood of a bunch of people who I owed money to. When I lost the restaurant, I lost everything. My mom lost part of her retirement. My brother lost his farm. All these things, and I felt like, and she was saying, no, you're punishing yourself. And it was a phenomenal session. She's great. So that was very revealing. But I thought, oh, maybe I got this syphilis miasm. And I'm testing. Do I have this one? Oh, maybe not now. Is it because of the session? It says yes. Maybe that was something that was able to help me with that. But that sense of danger lurking and hiding. Remember, hiding is the key. So this is an important thing to remember. She did such a phenomenal job for me the other day. That was really was an eye-opener. Everybody does it just a little bit differently, and I think that's important. Okay, so let's go to this next miasm here. Psychosis miasm, the theme of excess. So this is where, well, let's just read it here. It says expresses its excess inner energy in strong, sudden reactions and in the need for excitement and stimulations. These are your daredevils, you know, pretty much they're going to go out and the adrenaline seekers. Excitement and stimulation. The psychotic miasm has a strong sexual component that can be expressed in short-lived, anonymous encounters or in any other sexual expression of the need for stimulation and excitement. Okay, so commonly affecting your disposition to a particular complex of ailments. I was taking segments of this thing out here. Warts, moles, benign tumors, and other excess growths can arise from the action of psychosis as a fibrocystic breast disease and endometriosis. Sudden high fevers, ruptured eardrums, abdominal inflammations can result from the disordered inner energy attempt to find a release. So that's this energy trying to escape. So there's the three main ones that I just didn't know anything about those. Now let me take you back a step. I've got to promote her because just before we got this, I have a wonderful woman I work with, and her name is Tricia Cook. Now, if she watches it, she's going to turn blush on me probably. But she has a unique system that she uses to work with children of not necessarily disabled, but they are challenged in one way, Fragile X, autism, because she is a right-brained person, which most people are left-brained, and especially guys. She has a brother who's a neurosurgeon, but she is a right-brained person, and so she looks at things differently. And she has been able to track this down, and it's called RAS, and I was going to promote her a little bit here. She has, let me just bring this up real quick. If you went to myelbert, myelbert.com, this is the work that she does. She helps parents and teachers get better help with common learning and behavioral challenges with this program that she put together. And she actually tutors online and other ways to help you understand things. Well, up here, this is her picture here. I don't think we got a bigger one. But if you click on this spot right here, if you go to her website, it'll take you to her paper that she wrote. Now, the reason this is important, because this goes back even further than miasms. And it's what they call RAS, or RAS. She's, and there she's got that in here, but she explains it in this paper. Well, sometimes it goes over my head, but I think it's important that people understand that this goes right to the brain. And she goes through this thing and explains it. Epigenetics, there we go, I think that's it. And how the development, but then she goes down into the sections of the brain. She really is detailed in this, and when we were talking about it, I said, oh, that sounds like miasm. She says, I think miasms stem from the RAS system. And the RAS system connects to the vagus nerve system. So you got this vagus nerve that goes all throughout your body, and we don't have that on the body code, which I think that you might want to add it. I do have it in my Ultimate Healer program, but we don't have it in the body code, at least coming up that way. All this information here is really important, and sometimes you might test to see if the person that you're dealing with has a RAS issue that needs to be addressed. I think we can cover them, because you remember Dr. Nelson explained this to us, that we could make this as complicated or as simple as we want it. I think you need to remember that it is what it is for what you're doing. Everybody does it differently, and that's perfectly fine. For me, I like to know more. I like to know what's causing things, because sometimes I feel like the body feels more comfortable with showing me where we need to go, as long as we give it the opportunity to do it. And the only way it can do it is by coming to the people who know about these items, or these different opportunities. Here's the tuberculosis one here. It's very similar to the other one. Yeah, in fact, it's a hard time. Okay, so if somebody has had in your family, remember, this is not you getting tuberculosis. This is somebody in your family, and it's not the actual disease. It is the vibrational blueprint. Remember that we're having the issue. This means that someone back in your family actually had it and passed it on to one or more of their children, and it's a tubercular weakness or miasm. Tuberculosis itself is not an inheritable disease, but the miasm can be. These are some of the effects of a tuberculosis miasm, which I believe is under the psychosis one. That's a hard time gaining weight, your osteoporosis, brittle bones, deficiency of calcium, and dairy food allergies. Imagine that. And it comes from this particular issue. I didn't know that. Let's see, let's move on to another one. Cancer miasm. Wow. When I saw this, I thought, wow, this is really interesting. This is the physical definition of cancer as the tumor or the cell is a hybrid between the psychosis and the syphilis, and emerges as cancer. So you got the hybrid, you got the miasms. So my guess is, and I'm testing this as I say this, it's true. Nah, it's not necessarily true. I was wondering if somebody got cancer, they would have both those miasms, and the answer is not necessarily. Do they always have the psychosis? No. Do they always have the syphilis? No. Interesting. Could it be a combination of other miasms? No. Is it a combination of these two? Yes. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is on this. The rapid reproduction and metastasis spreading throughout the multiple systems of the body is in line with the psychotic miasm, while the wasting away dark destructive energy of the syphilis miasm makes up the other half of the equation. Think about this. Does this give you a little bit more depth into some of those things that we're dealing with? Commonly affecting the psychological and emotional state of mind. Now, I think that was the biggest part of the cancer miasm, was a state of mind. Now, I've worked with a lot of people with cancer, and I always make sure that I tell them I can't cure you of cancer, but what we can do is we can release the imbalances that are causing this. As I've kind of looked at the people that have had it, and I find that usually it is a state of mind that they've been in for a while that has allowed this combination, this cocktail, to brew enough where the cancer has come forth. So here's the effects: resignation, giving up from stress or disappointments, accepting what others dictate to them, a loss of will, headaches, and migraines. It was interesting when I read this article, it talked about it saying the doctor likes the person who says, I'm going to beat this, because they've got a will to live. And that's an important thing to remember, is that because a lot of times some people just give up and there's not a whole lot that you can do, or they don't get engaged soon enough. And that can be frustrating too. Here's a fun one, the gonorrheal miasm. This disease, the disease gonorrhea, expresses this theme in its urethral discharge and genital warts. Okay, so this one obviously came from that other one that we were working with, the main one. I think it was, which one was it? I don't think it was the syphilis. I can't remember. Whichever one that commonly affects the warts, moles, benign tumors, and other excessive growths can arise from the action of psychosis. Okay, so it's the psychosis one. So this is kind of a one that comes off of that one there. Sudden high fevers, ruptured eardrums. Okay, this is an attempt to release. Psychosis expresses its inner energy in strong sudden reactions and in the need for excitement and stimulation. So this gives you not, I'm sure, and I know there are many other ones. You got to think about when they first put these things together, they were working from the angle of what were we dealing with at that particular time. Now, I was asking earlier, I said, can we have a coronavirus miasm? And the answer was no. Does it come from somebody else that has a different kind of a miasm? That says no, because it's a virus. But I wonder if it doesn't, we don't have predispositions to receive some of these things because of this. Now, I mentioned in my little article out there before that I sent out to everybody that I have a chart that I created to help work with miasms, because I was working with it and I was thinking, well, miasms, we were always told they were inherited health or disease energies. And I thought, well, how can that, me, I sat there and I'm going, well, wait a sec. I'm getting this feeling that something else is happening. And that's when I started doing some more work on, from my point of view, without doing all this research. Now, with the research helps me get into this even more. But I realized that sometimes we can have miasms that are not health-related. Imagine that. So they can be symbolic. Now, I'm sure they will tie in somewhere if we were to create a chart from all this research. Remember, they said that it could affect you in different ways. But this is an easy way for me to go ahead and figure out what direction somebody's coming from. See, I've got the mental, spiritual. Here's my levels: mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional. Now, we know that I could probably take spiritual out of there because I don't usually run into a spiritual issue here. But I have run into financial, educational, intellectual, and social miasms. Social comes up a lot, and so does financial. And then down the bottom, when it's boundaries, shielding, despair, and past lives. Are those miasms? And the answer, well, they're not all exactly. Shielding is, despair, and past life, all of those do come up to me as miasms. So the first one, and I explain this chart first too. This is one of my charts that I've created that I call a cross chart. So what you do is you start at the left, like it says up here, cross chart, work left to right. So first of all, I find out the level. What kind of a miasm that am I dealing with? One of the first things I do when I get somebody who's got a miasm, and of course I use Dr. Nelson's chart, it says miasms. I said, is this a regular miasm? and that would be the health issue one. And it will tell me no, because it knows already what's on my chart. If it knows what is coming, then it's going to come here, and it will give me a better evaluation of what they're dealing with. The first column is levels, and I find out, okay, let's say it's a financial miasm. Now, I always ask, is it inherited? And the reason I do that is because, remember, this is an energy, it's a vibrational energy. And when I first started working with this, I found that sometimes the same person I was working on had a miasm. And it was from something they had earlier in their life. So maybe somebody had pneumonia or some kind of major bronchitis or whatever in their life, and they were healed from it, but that energy still remained. So you could technically get this on your own as well as inherit it. Make sense? Okay, so we're dealing with this. You take the first one, and I figure out what it is. We can say it's financial. I said, you know, say that you got this from your father or a couple generations back. I said, do we need to know the cause? And sometimes it says yes. And so we go down through, and I said, was it the first box, second box, third box? And a lot of times it will come up as the second box under stress. Or it might come up under heartache or loneliness or trauma. It gave me the cause. And then I said, I gave it 2 columns there in the last part. What part of my body does it affect? So it affects, and this tells me that usually it's a matter of coping. It could be weight. It could be wealth. It could be relationships. It gives me an idea that breaks out that miasm so I can look at it from a better point of view. Does that make sense? That's what that is. Over here, I just put levels. I've got this going on here. What parts? Now, this is the 5.5 parts of you that I use all the time. It can actually come from the consciousness, the subconscious, and then there's the ego, then there's the inner child, and then there's the keeper. And then the half part, when I say 5.5 parts of you, is the personality and the identity. So each one of those could be, this is set up so that you can get this information. Is this helpful for y'all? Okay, good. Let's unmute some people. You got some questions? What do you think we should be doing on this?
So Tom, when you work with someone, do you ever go in and ask if they have a miasm, or do you wait for it to show up?
I usually wait for it to show up. Now, in the situation, I had 2 different people today that one of them was really worried about money, and I thought, I just done this work. I just thought, man, does she have a miasm? And it said yes. And it was a miasm regarding money. And then the other person I was working with, she had a miasm. See, what was her miasm? It was a health issue, I think. So it really was, it was a skin issue. And how many times do we have somebody that says, I can't get rid of this eczema? And so if you've got something like that, one of these days, we'll put together a reverse chart that says, I have eczema. And we'll put it down. It could be this, 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 and this. We have books that help us with a lot of that stuff, but that's something I've wanted to put together for a few years now, and I started, and there's just so much. It's just too hard to do that at the moment anyway, till I come up with a good way to do it.
And
Did that answer your question, Marcia?
Yeah, but you also said that you're not sure you ever really get completely rid of the miasm.
Well, you need to ask, huh? That would be the parts that I'm asking.
Okay.
Because if you can get rid of the energies from that should make it so you're fine. The idea is to remove the imbalances, right? So the body can heal itself. If you figure out what the imbalances are and it turns out that it's a miasm, that's a big thing. I like knowing as much as I possibly can, because sometimes the body can guide you and say, this is the issue. I've used Google to bring up the eyes before, and I remember finding a tract of motion behind a cornea or a lens. You remove that, and it starts to make a difference. Sometimes the body's going to test you. I had one the other day that I said, is it in my book? Because it wasn't on the chart. I said, is it in my book? And that's my Ultimate Healer book that I always have, this thing here. 90% of the time, it's there. But when it says no, then I say, is it in my room? Well, I have bookcases all across here. I got books behind me. I'll say, is it in one of these books? It told me, no, no, no. Oh, it's in that one bookcase. I said, oh, and I go down the shelves. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And it says, no, but there's a box on the floor. So I had to pull the box out. And I'm looking at, it says Tom's Memories. I'm going, oh, you got to be kidding. I've looked in that box. I haven't unpacked it because there's so many pictures and different things in there. And her subconscious was waiting to see if I was going to find what I needed in there. So I pulled the box over, and I started pulling stuff out, and I would test, is it in this stack? And I put it on, is it in this stack? Is it in this stack? I finally got down to some tests that I had taken in college for my aptitude. And it was data on my aptitude capability or something like that. And I'm going, and that tested positive. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. It was this one chart, so I wrote it down. And we had to, basically what we were doing was comparing the norm of the country versus what you were doing. So we've all seen that, where you're on a certain percentile. And it ended up for her that we were comparing her belief in a certain thing compared to reality. And we needed to look at it in that standpoint. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, it made me work, but it took care of that issue. So that's the thing that I try and provide people with, enough charts to be able to do this. We'll talk about that in the next hour for those that want to hang around. What else do you got? Other questions?
Tom?
Yeah. Hey,
this
Linda.
is Linda. I have a question. First of all, I've never heard of miasms.
Uh-huh.
So this is quite the education for me tonight, being a nutritionist. I've not ever had a client that had this. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, as you were speaking about the miasms related to skin, as you know, I have intolerances, and the biggest reaction that I have is skin irritation. And I was thinking about myself, because one of the topics you were talking about said it's like you have this itch you never satisfy from scratching.
Right.
And that's exactly what happens to me. It's one of those unbelievable itches that you literally can wake up during the night and you can be scratching yourself to the point of almost bleeding. And so I find this fascinating. And so my question to you is, how would you differentiate then, I guess unless you just ask, is this a skin irritation related to a food intolerance versus a miasm?
Well, that was the interesting thing. And I was just looking here. I was listening to you as you were saying that, because I've got this one article that I'm going through, and she wrote 3 different articles, this woman. She is Anne Jerome Croce, C-R-O-C-E. She's a doctor, a research professor of American Studies in the Stetson. I'll just bring it up here. Let's just see it. One of the things she was talking about, and this Samuel Hahnemann, who was, I don't know if he was actually a doctor, but he worked with homeopathy, if I said that correctly.
Yes.
And that was what his specialty was. And he's the one that kind of put this all together. And as he was talking through that, in this particular, I looked in other ones also, when I looked up the miasms and what they were and how they broke them out, they deal a lot with food allergies. The predisposition of somebody not to be able to deal with some kind of food. Nutrition, I think, would be a big thing on this. And I don't know why. I was looking here to see if we could find it real quick. It breaks these main 3 down, but you're going to notice that there's a lot of stuff inside of that.
Right.
The psychosis, the syphilis, and then the one that we were talking about regular was this Basora one here.
Right.
Chronic diseases. So he wrote this book, The Chronic Diseases, and he talks about all the different miasms. I said it might be something interesting to delve into for what you do, and in fact, for any of us.
Right. I will definitely look this guy up.
Yeah, I think that will make a big difference. For example, when I first was working with prions, now I haven't done a class, I don't think, on prions, but prions, so when I was working with prions, I found that there was when you do the research, there's 3 different kinds of prions. And what it is, it's a mutated protein molecule. Now, Dr. Nelson did put that up there, and I don't know if he's got more in it now on the new app. I haven't had a chance to look at it. But the doctors hate that thing, because what it is a template that's not even alive, gets introduced, and it causes this protein molecule to fold incorrectly, causing it to malfunction. So there's 2 different stages I found. Stage 1 is infected, and stage 2 is saturated or disease level. So we have these in there, and I kept thinking, gee whiz, it comes from tainted meat. And I'm going, or stress or something, and all of a sudden it tapped into my head. Tainted was the word. Mm-hmm. So tainted situations is usually what it comes up under now for me. And a tainted situation, I took it a step further, is something that is not something that's supposed to happen. Tainted means that, for example, you go into business with your best friend and you find out that they're embezzling from the company. Or you in high school and you got your boyfriend and you find out your best friend is trying to steal your boyfriend. Those are tainted situations that really shouldn't be, but happen. Something you can't put your finger on, or something that you haven't been able to express. So that is usually what was going on with that type of thing, with a tainted situation. So now when I hit a prion, I always ask, is this actually a prion? And if it's not, then I know that it's a tainted situation. And I said, whose is this? Is this yours? Is it inherited? Because you're going to inherit that stuff. The energies, once again, these are energies that we're inheriting. And I find out the time frame, and I like to find out when it was. And I go, oh yeah, that was so bad. This is what happened. That way we can go in and we can release that.
Okay.
So that's where the stuff comes from. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did, because, I was just curious, when you're in a session with someone, because, we have the food intolerance chart. So I was just wanting to know what your mindset is when you face that. Probably before you knew about miasms, you were thinking probably it was more of a food intolerance, like I would. But now that you know about miasms, you'll know that, oh, okay, it could be something else other than that. And now I know, okay, this could be a miasm. So I'm going to do some research so that I'm more knowledgeable about the background of miasms. So thank you.
For you, so you like to know what the food is that is causing the problem. And me, I look at it and I say, okay, so I have an allergy to cheese, or I have an allergy to blueberries, or whatever. And I look at it and I say, what's causing this allergy? Can we just release the allergy? Or can we get rid of this energy? And so I rarely go to find out the actual food unless I'm forced to. And then I'll look at it that way. But usually I'm looking to see what is it that's causing that particular foundational vibration.
Well, see, the statement that you just made, when I was just a nutritionist, of course I went to food and intolerances and allergies. Now that, I'm an emotion code practitioner, then I will look at other possibilities and not necessarily go down that road if I'm just having an emotion code session with someone.
Right.
So, and then there may be times when they may be a client that, they're doing emotion code and nutrition sessions with me. So it will depend on the individual and the circumstances as to why they came to me.
Absolutely. And is there more questions on miasms? Because if not, then I'll touch on intolerances and allergies. Okay, what do you got, Glenda? Hang on. Okay, that's right. We got you. I'm muted.
Okay, it's not a question, but it's an observation, because my mom died of cancer at age 68. And the first 2 things just described her situation completely. Lack of will. She had met such resistance. My dad was, it was his way or the highway type situation. And the first, I can't remember, I guess I blocked it out, the first line, but it was totally her. And I know you also said that it's a state of mind is the biggest component. And she was under his control for 45 years. And I think she just lost her will, just like what the second line said. Due to resistance.
I agree with, I think that's probably very, very true. You know, this happens to us a lot. And when you look at that, and I feel like I need to tell you about this intolerance thing, because the miasms can get you going in that direction, and it might help you too, Linda, in your nutritional stuff. I found that when we think of allergies and intolerances, most people, we think about, I have an intolerance to milk, or something like that. It's usually that kind of a thing that you're dealing with. It's some kind of food that's a reaction. And yet, when it hits an allergy, I go 3 steps. You have the regular, I like bananas, that's fine. Then I find that when I eat bananas, I just kind of doesn't make me sick, but it kind of irritates me that it gives me gas or something like that. And then you have the part where it turns to an allergy, where it makes you sick to eat the bananas. The thing is that I found is that those energies in there that are causing that usually started as an intolerance, or it could, now we know that it could be a vibrational thing from a miasm, which, if you take it even further, could have been a situation with the vagus nerve with the RAS not functioning correctly, which goes to the brain. So you can follow these things back. But I'll use my cooks. I use this one all the time. I was trying to change it for bananas. I love shrimp. I love to eat shrimp. And what happens is that as a cook, many times you put together big caterings or whatever, and you might have, when I was working at the Davenport in Spokane, which is a big fancy hotel, we would do 200 to 300 people for a brunch, $50 brunch. They could come in and eat whatever they wanted. Well, of course, they want some prawns. So we are out there peeling prawns, 600 of them. Well, you can't do that in an hour. It takes a few hours to do that, and you got 2 or 3 people. You always hope that you don't get there on time or for that particular shift where you're peeling those things, because you're standing there just peeling away. Well, you start off with bare hands, and you sit there and do it because they're going to be cooked. It's okay to do that. And then you find that your hands start to turn red and they start to itch. This is over time, because we're doing this every week. And so then it gets to the point where you put a pair of gloves on. You got some latex gloves just so you don't get your hands messed up. And then they have little sharp things that are cutting through the gloves. So now you're putting on 3 gloves on each hand, and you're peeling these things. And it gets to the point where your hands, you can't touch them anymore because they itch so much. And then pretty soon you can't eat the shrimp anymore. And it all boils down to the water that they're raised in. So you've got toxins in the ocean, and it builds up and builds up. So this toxin is building up in your hands. So it starts off, no problem, I love them. Then it gets to the point where they irritate me. And whenever I go to my intolerance chart, I have a whole chart for intolerances. I said, okay, let's see what makes Glenda mad. Because it's an intolerance. It's something that probably was fine before, but now it's got to the part where it irritates you. And then if it becomes an allergy, then it actually will make you sick. That makes sense as far as that stuff going on? There's usually something that's being fed into that vibrational energy that makes a difference. And I have, those of you that are ultimate healers, we'll talk about that a little bit in just a few minutes. We'll talk about some of those charts. That helps you identify. Does that help you understand a little bit more on that, Linda? I'm assuming it does. I'm assuming it does.
Tom, I have another question about that.
Sure, Marcia.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
You said that you look at the imbalance underneath the allergy. So I've worked with lots of allergies. I've cleared them up using NEAT work, a lot of stuff. But I have clients, the biggest one I come across is soy.
Oh, okay.
So you're saying look for the imbalance in the body that's allowing the soy allergy to find hold, or how would you say that?
I usually find out, first of all, how is the client referring to it? Because, we're working with the client. If they're I had a guy who wasn't soy, it was corn. And everything has got corn something. It's got either corn syrup, it's got anything that has to do with corn. He can't even go in a theater because of the corn smell. It's enough that it will, from popcorn, he can't handle that. So he has to be really, really careful about what is in the ingredients and stuff. And he had another one that was beef. Now, he couldn't eat beef. He would just throw up. He would get violently sick if he ate beef. Well, but we started on the beef one, and we worked on the beef, and we just released the energies that came up. Now, I think, once again, up above, God, the angels, whoever it is that's helping you on this work, they will make up the difference for what you don't know. So I was simply releasing the stuff that I found. This is before all my big charts. I released this stuff for his meat allergy, his beef allergy. And I always warn people, don't go out and necessarily gorge yourself on something that's going to make you sick from before, but he says, I feel much better. I feel really good. What does he do? First thing he does is go out and eat a hamburger, and he was fine. Converted him. And then something happened where he wouldn't let me do work on this corn. So the corn thing is very similar to what you had, though, what you were talking about, where it's in everything. And I firmly believe that if you can identify what it is, the subconscious is waiting for you to identify it correctly. And once it does, it can release it. It's the subconscious. Remember, it's not us that's releasing. We ask, can I release this? And what is it that we're releasing? It's what the subconscious says, yes, it's now time, you can release this. Does that make sense, Marcia?
Yes, thank you very much.
You bet. Anything else? Another question?
No, I got a question.
Sure.
Okay, I've been working with a client who, I don't think I'm breaking HIPAA here, who was
No, we're all practitioners. That's the pretty much, so you're good.
Sexually abused by a family member for years and years and years and years. She has various kinds of symptoms. One of them is that skin, disorder where if you scratch it or touch it, it will welt.
Okay.
And we're thinking that it has to do with these unprocessed emotions. And we know that it will eventually be released. But now I'm wondering if I should start looking at the Sora miasm.
Test right now. See what you think.
That's a yes.
I got a yes also. So think about what we're dealing with, though. Okay, so we're going to take it back just a little bit because it doesn't matter. I'm going to do this anyway. I'll show you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you my intolerance chart, and there's a reason I'm doing that. Okay, so let's go down to the intolerance chart right here. Come on, there we go. I know this is a little small. Let me go to the slideshow and say from this current slide. Let's see if we can make it bigger. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Or is it still too small?
It's small but doable.
Okay, so you'll notice on the right side I've got my allergy chart. And most of these allergies are the normal stuff that people have, right? So you got seasonal, you got drugs, food, dermatitis, latex, asthma, seasonal, animal, anaphylactic, mold, and dust. And I've got them broken into different things. It just helps me locate the normal allergy stuff faster. But when it's not there and it's still an allergy, I swap over to the intolerance chart. Now the intolerance chart, let me just zoom in a little bit for you here. Where's that keyboard? Oh, here it is. Okay. Let me see if I can do this. Hold this down, zoom in. Okay, so let's go up to the top and try and slide this over. Well, you know that there are probably well, I think I have something there. Hang on a sec. I'm not getting the bars here let me just do this real quick. Well, here on the side it says substance, emotion, food, place. So let's ask if one of these is the intolerance that your person is working on. That make sense? And I'm doing that for a reason. I got Tony up there.
Oh, Susan.
Susan, thank you, Susan. Yeah. So I apologize not remembering there. But so I think that this person you're working with, even though you're dealing with the sexual abuse and the skin issues, is there something on this intolerance chart that we're dealing with? And the answer is yes. So what we're doing now is we're looking and we're saying, is there a miasm involved? Yes, there is. Now, we've taken it back a step because we're adding the miasm. Is it the one we're talking about? Yes. Is there more than one miasm? Yes, actually there is. Is it one of the main three? Yes. Is it the syphilis one? No. The gonorrhea one? No. Is it the psora? No. What was the other one? It was syphilis. Is that one of the other ones? Okay, like tuberculosis or one of those three? Yeah. Cancer? Ooh, she's actually got the cancer miasm. Okay,
what?
so what's that?
What did you say?
I said she's actually got the cancer miasm also. So you might look at, that's a combination of two things. So you might look and see, and here's the reason I say that. Remember what the cancer thing was? It was the state of mind. So we're looking at it we're taking the state of mind also that she's in. So these are things that you need to write down and work with. Is there something on this intolerance chart? And the answer is yes. Is that in column A, B, C, even, 2, 4? Okay, oh, interesting. The neighborhood is it's the snobbery. Okay, so let me zoom in a little bit here so you can see it. So it's this one right here. It says snobbery. Remember, these are the intolerances. This is what makes that person mad. And usually on a snobbery situation is she can't stand people who are snobs. It actually makes her mad. And the reason that you would remove an intolerance for this is because, quite frankly, she won't work anybody who acts like that. I don't know your client. I'm just telling you this is what's testing for her right now. She's in if this went further, probably, was it have to do with what happened to her in her life? Absolutely. Is this what part of the abuse? And the answer is yes. So somebody was always better than her or something like that she's dealing with.
What's interesting is her father is a narcissistic personality.
There you go. Is that the issue? And the answer is yes. So she has also this intolerance in there that's coming because of this vibrational energy that she's dealing with from these miasms. Is the miasm the root? And it says yes. So what I would do in that situation, it's not so much we release the snobbery if we need. Is there another one on here? Yeah. Is it one of the pages that we can see? Yeah. Is it on the first one, second one? Blue, white, top, that one, that one, that one. Major illness, dental, exercise. Oh, look at that. There's the naivety and innocent. Is it the naivety? Yes. So for her, she really, it really bothers her when she sees people who just can't see what's really happening behind the scenes. Does that make sense?
People
she
who
went
are
through
naive.
it.
Are you saying naive people?
People that don't understand what she really experienced because they don't believe it happens.
Oh, yeah. Her mother.
Okay. So that, and that's probably the issue right there. And it says test positive.
Because I don't see it on this chart here.
It's on the bottom. It's the straight down on the.
Oh, I see. I see. Very, very, very. It's like half chopped up.
Right on the bottom part there. This is a chart I put together because I kept running into things. These are different things that people have allergies for. You'll notice that money is on here. Different things that really bother people. So this is the stuff that helped you dig down into that particular issue that she's dealing with. Now, the reason this comes up now is because this is available. And the body is able to pick the closest energy that needs to happen for that particular issue that she's dealing with. So let's ask it, is there another one on here? And the answer is yes. See, this is also in the center column. Is it white? It's blue. 1, 2, 3. So, and it's under slavery. You'll see here the third blue in the center column, the first line, slavery. She had no choice.
Right.
So that really, this is stuff that she can relate to because, and it's to the point where she's a very troubled woman. And the reason these things are coming up, okay, because she's feeling like she's been beaten every time her skin gets, and that's why there's a welt. So this is like somebody's whipping her. It's a slavery thing.
Oh.
Does this make some sense?
Yeah.
Let's see, is there another one on here? Not as much. Is there an allergy? There's some allergies. Is the allergy on this page? Yes, interesting. So if I can't find the allergy on the other side, I'll look at it. Is it visible right now? It says no. So let's back out a little bit. Is it visible now? Yes. In the first column, second column, third column. So on top, it says yes. Under influence. She has an allergy, not an intolerance, but an allergy to when somebody else's and when she's under the influence. And is it the influence of her abuse? Absolutely. The under influence of another person? Yes. See where this makes a difference?
With the allergy of influence of another person.
She's the person who was controlling her.
Oh.
It makes her sick. She'll probably physically get sick if she has to walk through some of the experiences she's been through, because it's now turned from an intolerance to an allergy.
Slowly.
Another one on here? Is there
There's
something else we need to be aware of? Yes. Is it almost intolerance? Okay, here's an almost intolerance. Third column, white, blue. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, so I already know what it is. Forced course of direction. People have been telling her what to do her whole life. And she had no other choice but to do it. But it's not an allergy yet, but it's close. It's close to the point of where she's at. How old is this woman?
Probably late 30s. Offhand, I can't remember.
Okay. So this is still pretty recent, you might say, in a way, because she's still living through these things in her mind. She hasn't gotten to the point. So this has happened 16 years ago.
She could be 40.
Yeah, well, it's been about 16 years since she's been out of this situation. Let's see. Hang on a sec. 16 years ago, that's 2004. And if she is, even if she's 40 now, that puts her at 24. My guess is it really happening that late? No. Is it earlier? Yes. How much earlier? Okay, so we add that to the 16. Okay, so 16 would be 23 years ago. So she was 16 or 17 years old when these things were happening. Or a version or some kind of form of it. It wasn't necessarily physical because it continued verbally. She just was in a damaged state. She still is. So you see how we peel things back, though? Some of these things can make a huge difference.
So now that I have this, where do I go from here when I see her next?
Well, you've wrote those down.
Yeah.
And you can test, and I think you're going to find that it's true. So what I do is I put that there and I say, what do we need to release to get rid of this? You know, that's usually the issue. And that's, you know, it depends on what you've got for charts and stuff. And I can show you all, if you want me to show you the Ultimate Healer System so you can see where you go.